Hello once again, it's Mr. Pete, your internet shop teacher, and this is episode number 58 of my This and That series. I'm getting very close to 250,000 subscribers, so click that button if you have not already done so. Help me get there, please. Now, in the last episode, I talked about this silcock. This, of course, sticks out of the house, to put a hose on, water your plants. And in my friend's retirement home, which is only 5 years old, this split, during the winter, naturally, it froze. And I posed the question to you, what caused that? Well, 90% of you said, well, that's because he left the hose on there. No, he did not. I knew you'd say that. No, he did not. He goes away down south for the winter. He's very fastidious and puts everything away for the winter, the barbecue grill and the bird feeders, and all the hoses. And matter of fact, I tease him all the time because the hoses that he uses are those stupid flat ones that you can wind up, and the water comes out of them, and you get them on, as advertised on TV, But he loves them. Well, I can't imagine they're any good. But, all right, since it wasn't the hose left on there, a lot of you guessed, well, the plumbers had installed it at a wrong angle. It should be pitched just a little bit downhill so the water will drain here. Remember that these operate, even though the handle's out here, the valve is actually right here. And it was installed, there's a little level. And it wouldn't take much, but uphill a little bit is what happened. Now what I want to do here is to, I'm going to cut this apart and we'll take a look at it, but what several people said is it's not the actual ice that forces that up and freezes it. The ice pushes against the air that remains in there, and that is what causes it to burst. In other words, compressed air. So I do not know that for sure, but that sounds reasonable. The other thing I find interesting, I just told you that his house, I'm spending too much time on this, is only 5 years old, and he paid, it's a $300,000 house, which is expensive around here. But the outside walls are 6 inches thick. There's a 6-inch ruler with plenty of insulation. So why did it freeze with all that insulation? But of course it's not reaching the heated house, and it was in a wall, in a closet. Had to cut a hole into the wall to replace it and solder a new one in. All right, I'm going to cut this apart. Off camera, I hope. Okay, that took 15 minutes. And I used the Horror Freight grinder, which, believe it or not, this is the second one I had because the first one failed. Worked pretty well. Copper dust every place, brass dust. But the point being here now is that the valve is frozen up because of this distortion. But again, the knob here, the handle, just turns a rod, and the actual shutoff is way up here inside the house where it ostensibly cannot freeze. And the actual valve is right at the end of the Allen wrench. So that's the anatomy of a frost-proof hydrant. These are hydrants, That's how a fire hydrant works too. Although a fire hydrant has a weep hole and is packed in gravel down here so that it can drain, and gravity is its friend. And this was installed such that gravity was its destruction. Enough on that, let's move on. I need some help out there. This is a page out of the Atlas lathe catalog, not a page, just an item. It's for gear cutting, and notice that this is the milling attachment, and what I want here is the blueprints for this little gear cutting attachment. There is the number of the blueprint. They didn't sell the item, they sold the blueprint for 50 cents a long, long time ago. Interruption. All right, the next item, you might have heard me talk about my friend Roger Taylor out in California, and he is a retired machine shop teacher as well. He is the one that sent me this nice little vise for the first South Bend shaper that I had. And thank you, Roger, for that, and this box. I'll show you what's in here, but I'm not going to tell you too much about some of it because it's going to be in another video. But the box is mutilated, thanks to the post office. Look at that. And I hope there might be something missing that he sent. I really don't know. But this hammer here is what I love, or that's why he sent it, and that's what broke the box. You know, these boxes are a joke, you know, as far as the strength of them are concerned. All right. This hammer, that's all I'm going to show you because that is going to be in my next What Is It? What's a hammer, you're thinking? Well, all right. This book, I'm already about 70 pages into it. Do you remember the Burgmaster Company? I'm going to talk more about this book and the demise of the Burgmaster Company, which were turret-type drill presses. I remember one at General Electric. Our teacher took us through to see, that was my first numerical control machine, tape operated. He sent this little book here, Union Tool Company, which is not only their catalog of Union tools, and I do have some Union tools, and all kinds of tables. So that's a neat little booklet, pocket size for a machinist. Two books here on plexiglass. Rom and Haas, of course, is that company. These are old enough to where they're pre-zip code, design manual, and fabrication manual. I'll probably give those to one of my friends who's a plastics man. I'm not going to talk any more about that. There's a couple of clamps here, hold-down clamps, and I like these, but they're aluminum, and it seems to me funny that you would use aluminum to hold something down that it could crack or bend, but this might be forged aluminum rather than cast aluminum. I think that every machinist in the free world knows that this is a Starrett center finder and what the purpose is. And there's a little one on a 4-inch combination square for small work. Well, if you got a bigger circle, that won't work. But this Starrett one will work. Well, what are you going to do if you got a real big circle? That doesn't really work. I should put it this way. Well, I'm leading up to something here. Roger sent me on loan this huge center finder head. I've never seen one that big. Have you? I have to send that back, and the hammer too. He wants them back. But look at this. Now, he didn't have a blade for it when he got it at a rummage sale. So he made a blade. I'm just going to stick this in here. But he didn't want to send it along because it would take another box. But this would allow you, of course, to find the center of much larger circles. But that's kind of neat. I do not know what brand it is. You know, none of these are branded. The Starrett logo is on the head and on the blade and on the protractor, but it seems like they never mark. Take it back. That one's marked. That one's marked Starrett. Oh, I got to take that back, but it's not on this little one. But there is no trademark on this, and the knobs, the knurled knob is not the same as the typical Starrett that we're used to. So I don't know what the brand is. Does anyone out there have one of these? This is cast iron. Thank you, Roger. This is a little bit of an update. Not too long ago I talked about finished nuts as opposed to common nuts, and a couple of people commented on that. And one man said that his dad called them washer nuts, but I tend to think of these as a washer nut. Actually, it's a flange nut, and you can still get these, but they're kind of a specialty item. Like MasterCard, everybody's going to have them, but I did find them at a box store, but they were only available in grade 8 and fine thread, so you know you could pay $1 or $2 for one nut. Fairly recent, I made a video about cutting a taper, and I said there's no good way of measuring a taper. You can't use a micrometer, and they don't make a micrometer for that, so you'd have to use all kinds of other inspection instruments. Wrong! Shortly after that, I was watching Keith Rucker, and he pulled out a pair of taper micrometers and proceeded to measure a taper. Let me show you a couple pictures on the internet of that. I found that interesting, but you're not going to find them at Menards. Okay, this is the kind of micrometer that Keith Rucker was using, and notice that the brand name on it is Taper Mic. And they made them in at least 2 sizes, maybe even more. But what is interesting about this rather complicated looking device, actually it's a tiny sine bar. Can you see the pivot there and the roller right there? So I've never used one, but I found these on Google Images. And I took the liberty of looking up the patent, and there it is again with the teeny tiny little sine bar. And that's a 1956 patent. Look that up if you're in the mood. There's a few other pictures here as well. I bet Mr. Gershom lost a lot of sleep coming up with this. Makes my head spin just looking at the drawings. I just bought myself a new tablet. And there it is. By the way, that's a picture of me and Phil Wright up in the bell tower at the Rock Island Arsenal. So watch for that video coming up very soon. But it sure makes my old... How do you turn this on? Sure makes my old tablet seem puny in comparison, doesn't it? Plus this is high definition. I always wondered what was inside of one of these. I should do a... What makes it work? You know what? Let's do it right now. What is inside this tablet? Wow, does that smell? And now you can tell exactly how they work. I always wondered. I might have talked about this before, but I got all kinds of file handles here, but I certainly favor the ones that are called screws-on. Spell like that, or screws, yeah, screws-on. It's a trade name, and those good ones are stamped right here on the ferrule. I know you can't see that right now. Well, what's the big deal? Because these cost quite a bit more than this type. Well, this is the kind you just jam it on there, and you know, they really work well enough, but here's what usually happens. Even though you wrap them on pretty well like that when you install them, when you hang up a file vertically and then kind of drop it, you know, these pop off. And that was a big problem at school. You know, there's file handles everywhere, and you don't dare use a file without a handle. The screws-on handles actually make a bit of a thread. Can you see it right there? Remember, the tang is soft. Nothing like the hard working end of it. So when you put them on, you screw them on until it won't go any farther on, and then, you know, that's not going to come off. So I really like those. This one really is a little too small for this size because it's only gripping out on the very end of the tang. So you have to have the right size. Several videos ago, I talked about a Blue Flame 6, and I said, who knows what a Blue Flame 6 is? Of course, it was a venerable Chevrolet six-cylinder, basically used from the 30s all the way up through the, 80s even. You know, it's been around for 50 years. Excellent engine. The older ones were called stove bolt because they used a lot of stove bolts holding on some of the exterior pieces. So that's what a Blue Flame 6 is. One of these carried us clear out to California and back trouble-free, note the 6-volt battery. And you gearheads out there, of course, know that the Blue Flame 6 powered the 53 and 54 Corvettes before Chevrolet had an 8-cylinder. However, they hopped it up and had dual carburetors on it. Let's see if I can find a picture. And there it is in a Corvette. Note the dual carburetors. But remember, those cars were also equipped with a slush box 2-speed power glide. Well, that concludes episode 58 of my This and That series. Hope you enjoyed at least some of it. Now, also following, stay tuned, there are just a couple short videos and some still pictures that some people enjoy watching. And some of them are of the clock, the Hotchkiss clock, so you might want to check that out. If not, this is Mr. Pete saying so long for now, and I'll see you next time.